me. They'll take away my character and drive me on the street for speaking to a gentleman.
There. Who's hurting you, you silly girl? What do you take me for?
It's all right. He's a gentleman. Look at his boots. She thought you was a copper's narc, sir.
What's a copper's knock?
Oh, it's a copper's narc, as you might say. What else would you call it? A sort of informer.
I take my Bible oath, I never said a word.
Oh, shut up. Do I look like a policeman?
Then what did you take down me words for? How do I know whether you took me down right? You just show me what you wrote about me.
The note taker opens his book and holds it steadily under her nose.
What's that? That ain't proper writing. I can't read that.
I can. Cheer up, Captain Boy, a flare off a poor gal.
It's because I called him Captain. I meant no harm. Oh, sir, don't let him lay a charge against me for a word like that, you.
Charge. No charge. Really, sir, if you are a detective, you need not begin protecting me against molestation by young women until I ask you. Anybody could see that the girl meant no harm.
He ain't a tech. He's a blooming busybody. That's what he is. I'll tell you. Look at his boots.
How are all your people down at Chelsea?
Who told you my people come from Chelsea?
Never you mind. They did. And you, girl, how do you come to be up so far east? You were born in Lisson Grove.
Oh, what harm is there in my leaving Lisson Grove? Oh.
Live where you like, but stop that noise.
Here, do you know where I come from?
Hoxton.
Well, he said I didn't. Blind me, you know everything, you do.
Ain't no call to meddle with me, he ain't.
Say, tell the captain here where he come from if you want to go fortune-telling.
Cheltenham, Harrow, Cambridge, and India.
Quite right. May I ask, sir, do you do this for your living at a music hall?
I've thought of that. Perhaps I shall someday.
You can't hear it over there, right?
What on earth is Freddy doing? I shall get pneumonia if I stay in this draft any longer.
Earl's Court.
Will you please keep your impertinent remarks to yourself?
Did I say that out loud? I didn't mean to. I beg your pardon. Your mother's Epsom, unmistakably.
Oh, very curious. I was brought up in Lodge Lady Park, near Epsom.
What a devil of a name! Excuse me. You want a cab, do you?
Don't dare speak to me.
Oh, please, Clara. We should be so grateful to you, sir, if you found us a cab.
Well, madam, I don't know whether you've noticed it, but the rain stopped about 2 minutes ago.
Frightening people like that. How would he like it himself?
Oh, it's quite fine now, Clara. We can walk to a motor bus. Come.
But the cab! Oh, how tiresome.
All the people exit, except the note taker, the gentleman, and the flower girl.
How do you do it, if I may ask?
Oh, simply phonetics, the science of speech. That's my profession, also my hobby. You can spot an Irishman or a Yorkshireman by his brogue. I can place a man within 6 miles. I can place him within 2 miles in London. Sometimes within 2 streets.
To be ashamed of himself, unmanly coward.
But is there a living in that?
Oh, yes, quite a fat one. This is an age of upstarts. Men begin in Kentish Town with £80 a year and end in Park Lane with 100,000. They want to rock Kentish Town, but they give themselves away every time they open their mouths. Now, I can teach them. Woman! Cease this detestable boo-hooing instantly, or else seek the shelter of some other place of worship.
To be here if I like, same as you.
A woman who utters such depressing and disgusting sounds has no right to be anywhere, no right to live. Remember that you are a human being with a soul and the divine gift of articulate speech, that your native language is the language of Shakespeare and Milton and the Bible, and don't sit there crooning like a bilious pigeon.
No.
Oh, heavens, what a sound. Ow!
Go on.
Oh. You see this creature with her curbstone English, the English that will keep her in the gutter to the end of her days? Well, sir, in 3 months, I could pass that girl off as a duchess at an ambassador's garden party. I could even get her a place as a lady's maid or a shop assistant, which requires better English. That's the sort of thing I do for commercial millionaires. And on the profits of it, I do genuine scientific work in phonetics, and a little as a poet along Miltonic lines.
I am myself a student of Indian dialects. And
Oh, are you? Do you know Colonel Pickering, the author of Spoken Sanskrit?
I am Colonel Pickering. Who are you?
Henry Higgins, author of Higgins' Universal Alphabet.
I came from India to meet you.
I was going to India to meet you.
Higgins!
Pickering!
Where do you live?
27A Wimpole Street. Come and see me tomorrow.
I'm at Carlton. Come with me now, and let's have a jaw over some supper.
Right you are.
Buy a flower, kind sir. I'm short for my lodging.
I rarely haven't any change. I'm sorry.
Girl, you're a liar. Short for your lodging. You said you could change half a crown.
You ought to be stuffed with nails, you ought. Here, take the whole bloomin' basket for 6p.
She flings the whole basket at his feet just as the church clock strikes the second quarter. Higgins looks heavenward as they chime.
Ah, God sends a reminder about charity.
He raises his hat solemnly, then throws a handful of money into the basket and follows Pickering. The girl coos with delight as she picks up each coin.
Ow! Ow! Ow!
A cab pulls up and Freddy springs out.
Oh, got one at last. Hello. Where are the two ladies that were here?
They walked to the bus when the rain stopped.
And left me with a cab on my hands? Damnation!
Never you mind, young man. I'm going home in a taxi.
She shows the doubtful cabbie her small fortune in change to prove she can pay the fare, gets in and pulls the door shut with a slam.
Now, Mr. Cabman, let's see how fast you can make her hop it.
Well, I'm dashed.
Act 2. The next day at 11 a.m., Higgins' laboratory in Wimpole Street. It is filled with the strange instruments of his phonetics trade, including a phonograph with wax cylinders, many books and papers. Pickering is seated at the table, putting down some cards and a tuning fork which he has been using. Higgins is standing up near him, closing 2 or 3 file drawers.
Well, I think that's the whole show.
It's really amazing. I haven't taken half of it in, you know.
Would you like to go over any of it again?
No, thank you. Not now. I'm quite done up for this morning.
Tired of listening to sounds?
Yes, it's a fearful strain. I rather fancied myself because I can pronounce 24 distinct vowel sounds, but your 130 beat me. I can't hear a bit of difference between most of them.
Oh, that comes with practice. You'll hear no difference at first, but you keep on listening and presently you'll find they're all as different as A from B.
Higgins' housekeeper looks in.
What's the matter, Mrs. Pearce?
A young woman wants to see you, sir.
A young woman? What does she want?
Well, sir, she says you'll be glad to see her when you know what she's come about. She's quite a common girl, sir. I should have sent her away, only I thought perhaps you wanted her to talk onto one of your machines. I hope I've not done wrong, but really, you see such queer people sometimes. You'll excuse me, I'm sure, sir.
That's all right, Mrs. Pearce. Has she an interesting accent?
Oh, something dreadful, sir. Really. I don't know how you can take an interest in it.
Let's have her up. Show her up, Mrs. Pearce.
Very well, sir. It's up to you.
This is rather a bit of luck. I'll show you how I make records. We'll set her talking, and I'll take it down first in Bell's visible speech, and then in broad Romic, and then we'll get her on the phonograph.
This is the young woman, sir.
The flower girl enters, dressed in her shabby vest.
Why, this is the girl I jotted down last night. She's no use. I've got all the records I want of the Listen Grove lingo, and I'm not going to waste another cylinder on it. Be off with you, I don't want you.
Don't you be so saucy. You ain't heard what I come for yet. Man, did you tell him I come in a taxi?
Nonsense, girl. What do you think a gentleman like Mr. Higgins cares what you came in?
Oh, we are proud. Well, he ain't above giving lessons, not him. I heard him say so. Well, I ain't come here to ask for any compliment, and if my money's not good enough, I can go elsewhere.
Good enough for what?
Good enough for you. Now, you know, don't you? I've come to have lessons, I have, and to pay for them too, make no mistake.
Well, what do you expect me to say to you?
Well, if you was a gentleman, you might ask me to sit down, I think. Don't I tell you I'm bringing you business?
Pickering, shall we ask this baggage to sit down, or shall we throw her out of the window?
Oh, I won't be called a baggage, not when I've offered to pay like any lady.
What is it you want, my girl?
I want to be a lady in a flower shop, instead of selling flowers at the corner of Tottenham Court Road. But they won't take me unless I can talk more genteel. He said he could teach me. Well, there I am, ready to pay, not asking any favour, and he treats me as if I was dirt. I know what lessons cost as well as you do, and I'm ready to pay.
How much?
Now you're talking. I thought you'd come off it when you saw a chance of getting back a bit of what you chucked at me last night. You had a drop in, hadn't you?
Sit down.
If you're going to make a compliment of it.
Sit down.
Sit down.
Ow.
Do as you're told.
Angry and bewildered girl hesitates.
Won't you sit down?
Don't mind if I do.
And she finally sits.
What's your name?
Eliza Doolittle.
Now, Miss Doolittle, to business. How much do you propose to pay me for the lessons?
Oh, I know what's right. A lady friend of mine gets French lessons for 18 pence an hour from a real French gentleman. Well, you wouldn't have the face to ask me the same for teaching me my own language as you would for French. So I won't give more than a shilling. Take it or leave it.
Pickering, if you consider a shilling not as a simple shilling, but as a percentage of this girl's income, it works out as fully equivalent to 60 or 70 guineas from a millionaire.
60 pounds? What are you talking about? I never offered you 60 pounds. Where would I get
Hold
60
your tongue.
pounds? But I ain't got 60 pounds.
Why, you sit down. Nobody's going to touch your money.
Somebody is going to touch you with a broomstick if you don't stop sniveling. Sit down.
No, one would think you was me father.
If I decide to teach you, I'll be worse than two fathers to you. Here.
He offers her his silk handkerchief.
What's this for?
To wipe your eyes. To wipe any part of your face that feels moist. Remember, that is your handkerchief and that is your sleeve. Don't mistake one for the other if you wish to become a lady in a shop.
It's no use talking to her like that, Mr. Higgins. She doesn't understand you. Besides, you're quite wrong. She doesn't do it that way at all.
Higgins, I'm interested. What about the ambassador's garden party? I'll say you're the greatest teacher alive if you make that good. I'll bet you all the expenses of the experiment you can't do it. And I'll pay for the lessons.
Oh, you're real good. Thank you, Captain.
Oh, it's almost irresistible. She's so deliciously low, so horribly dirty.
Oh, I ain't dirty. I washed my face and hands before I come, I did.
You're certainly not going to turn her head with flattery, Higgins.
Oh, don't say that, sir. There's more ways than one of turning a girl's head, and nobody can do it better than Mr. Higgins. Though he may not always mean it, I do hope, sir, you won't encourage him to do anything foolish.
Oh, what is life but a series of inspired follies? I shall make a duchess of this draggle-tailed gutter snipe.
Ow.
Oh, yes, in 6 months, in 3 if she has a good ear and a quick tongue, I'll take her anywhere and pass her off as anything. We'll start today. Now, this moment. Take her away and clean her, Mrs. Pearce. Sandpaper if it won't come off any other way. Is there a good fire in the kitchen?
Yes, but I really
Take
don't think...
all her clothes off and burn them. Ring up Whiteley or somebody for new ones. Wrap her up in brown paper till they come.
You're no gentleman. You're not to talk of such things. I'm a good girl, I am.
We want none of your Listen Grove prudery here, young woman. You've got to learn to behave like a duchess. Take her away, Mrs. Pearce. If she gives you any trouble, wallop her.
I'll call the police, I will.
But I've no place to put her.
Put her in the dustbin.
Ow!
Oh, come, Higgins, be reasonable.
You must be reasonable, Mr. Higgins. Really, you must. You can't walk over everybody like this.
I walk over everybody. My dear Mrs. Pearce, my dear Pickering, I never had the slightest intention of walking over anyone.
But, sir, you can't take a girl up like that as if you were picking up a pebble on the beach.
Why not?
Why not? But you don't know anything about her. What about her parents? She may be married.
Gone. Who'd marry me?
There, as the girl very properly says, gone. Married indeed. By George, Eliza, the streets will be strewn with the bodies of men shooting themselves for your sake before I've done with you.
Nonsense, sir. You mustn't talk like that to her.
I'm going away. He's off his chump, he is. I don't want no balm he's teaching me.
Oh, indeed. I'm mad, am I? Very well, Mrs. Pearce. You needn't order the new clothes for her. Throw her out. You're an ungrateful, wicked girl. This is my return for offering to take you out of the gutter and dress you beautifully and make a lady of you.
Stop, Mr. Higgins. I won't allow it. You are the one that is wicked. Go home to your parents, girl, and tell them to take better care of you.
I ain't got no parents. My dad and stepmother, my sixth stepmother, she told me I was big enough to earn my own living and turned me out. But I done without them, and I'm a good girl, I am.
Very well, then. What on earth is all this fuss about? The girl doesn't belong to anybody and is no use to anybody but me. Take her downstairs and
But
please.
what's to become of her? Is she to be paid anything? Do be sensible, sir.
What on earth will she want with money? She'll have her food and her clothes. She'll only drink if you give her money.
Oh, you are a brute. It's a lie. Nobody ever saw the sign of liquor on me.
Does it occur to you, Higgins, that the girl has some feelings?
Oh. No, I don't think so. Not any feelings that we need bother about. Have you, Eliza?
I got my feelings, same as anyone else.
Will you please get to the point, Mr. Higgins? I want to know on what terms the girl is to be here. Is she to have any wages? And what is to become of her when you've finished your teaching?
What's to become of her if I leave her in the gutter? Tell me that, Mrs. Pearce.
That's her own business, not yours, Mr. Higgins.
Well, when I've done with her, we can throw her back into the gutter, and then it will be her own business again, so that's all right.
Oh, you've no feeling art in you. You don't care for nothing but yourself. Here, I've had enough of this. I'm going. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, you ought.
She makes for the door, but Higgins, with a twinkle in his eye, snatches the candy box and offers it in her direction.
Have some chocolates, Eliza.
How do I know what might be in them? I've heard of girls being drugged by the likes of you.
Higgins splits a chocolate in two, puts one half into his mouth and offers her the other half.
A pledge of good faith, Eliza. I eat one half, and you eat the other.
Liza opens her mouth to reply. He pops the half chocolate into it.
You shall have boxes of them, barrels of them, every day. You shall live on them, eh?
I wouldn't have ate it. Only I'm too ladylike to take it out of my mouth.
Listen, Eliza, I think you said you came in a taxi.
Well, what if I did? I've as good a right to take a taxi as anyone else.
You have, Eliza, and in future you shall have as many taxis as you want. You shall go up and down and round the town in a taxi every day. Think of that, Eliza.
Mr. Higgins, you are tempting the girl. It's not right. She should think of the future.
Excuse me, Higgins, but I really must interfere. Mrs. Pearce is quite right. If this girl is to put herself in your hands for 6 months for an experiment in teaching, she must understand thoroughly what she's doing.
Very well. Eliza, you are to live here for the next 6 months, learning how to speak beautifully, like a lady in a florist's shop. If you're good and do whatever you're told, you shall sleep in a proper bedroom, have lots to eat, and have money to buy chocolates and take rides in taxis. If you're naughty and idle, you will sleep in the back kitchen among the black beetles. At the end of 6 months, you shall go to Buckingham Palace in a carriage, beautifully dressed. If the king finds out you're not a lady, you will be taken by the police to the Tower of London, where your head will be cut off as a warning to other presumptuous flower girls. If you are not found out, you shall have a present of 7 and 6pence to start life with as a lady in a shop. If you refuse this offer, you will be a most ungrateful and wicked girl, and the angels will weep for you. Now, are you satisfied, Pickering? Could I put it more plainly and fairly, Mrs. Pearce?
I think you'd better let me speak to the girl properly in private. I don't know if I can take charge of her or consent arrangement at all. Of course, I know you don't mean her any harm, but when you get what you call interested in people's accents, you never think care what may happen to them or you. Come with me, Eliza.
That's all right. Thank you, Mrs. Pearce. Bundle her off to the bathroom.
You're a great bully, you are. I won't stay here if I don't like, and I never asked to go to Buckingham Palace. I didn't. I won't go near the king, not if I'm going to have my head cut off. And I have my feelings, same as anyone else.
Mrs. Pearce finally manages to push Eliza out the door and exits herself.
Excuse the straight question, Higgins. Are you a man of good character where women are concerned?
Have you ever met a man of good character where women are concerned?
Yes, very frequently.
Well, I haven't. I find that the moment I let a woman make friends with me, she becomes jealous, exacting, suspicious, and a damned nuisance. When you let them into your life, you find that the woman is driving at one thing and you're driving at another. So here I am, a confirmed old bachelor, and likely to remain so.
It's all very well, Higgins. But if I'm to be in this business, I shall feel responsible for that girl. I hope it's understood that no advantage is to be taken of her position.
What? That thing? Sacred, I assure you. You see, she'll be a pupil, and teaching would be impossible unless pupils were sacred. They might as well be blocks of wood. I might as well be a block of wood. It's...
Mrs. Pearce opens the door.
Well, Mrs. Pearce, is it all right?
I just to trouble you with a word, if I may, Mr. Higgins.
Yes, certainly. Come in.
Am I in the way?
Oh, not at all, sir. Mr. Higgins, will you please be very particular what you say before the girl?
Of course. I'm always particular about what I say. Why do you say this to me?
No, sir, you're not at all particular. When you've mislaid anything or when you get a little impatient. Now, it doesn't matter before me. I'm used to it. But you really must not swear before the girl.
I swear. I never swear.
You swear a great deal too much. I don't mind your damning and blasting and what the devil and where the devil and who the devil
Really?
and when
Mrs. Pearce, this language from your lips.
But there is a certain word I must ask you not to use. The girl has just used it herself because the bath was too hot. It begins with the same letter as bath. She knows no better. She learnt it at her mother's knee, but she must not hear it from your lips.
I cannot charge myself with ever having uttered it, Mrs. Pearce, except perhaps in a moment of extreme and justifiable excitement.
Only this morning, sir. You applied it to your boots, to the butter, and to the brown bread.
Oh, that mere alliteration, Mrs. Pearce, natural to a poet.
Well, sir, whatever you choose to call it, I beg you not to let the girl hear you repeat it.
Just so. It is these little things that matter, Pickering.
Yes, sir. Then might I ask you not to come down to breakfast in your dressing gown, or at any rate not to use it as a napkin to the extent you do, sir? And as for the location where you choose to remove your boots...
Now. I may do these things sometimes in absence of mind, but surely I don't do them habitually.
I hope you're not offended, Mr. Higgins.
Not at all, not at all. You're quite right, Mrs. Pearce. I shall be particularly careful before the girl. Is that all?
No, sir. Might she use some of those Japanese dresses you brought from abroad? I really can't put her back into her old things.
Certainly. Anything you like. Is that all?
Thank you, sir. That's all.
You know, Pickering, that woman has the most extraordinary ideas about me. Here I am, a shy, diffident sort of man, and yet she's firmly persuaded that I'm an arbitrary, overbearing, bossing kind of person. I can't account for it.
Mrs. Pearce returns.
If you please, sir, the trouble's beginning already. There's a dustman downstairs, Alfred Doolittle, wants to see you. He says you have his daughter here.
Phew! I say.
Send the blackguard up.
Oh, very well, sir.
He may not be a blackguard, Higgins.
Nonsense. Of course he's a blackguard.
Whether he is or not, I'm afraid we shall have some trouble with him.
Oh, no, I think not. If there's any trouble, he shall have it with me, not I with him.
Doolittle, sir.
She admits Mr. Doolittle, self-confident dustman, and exits again.
Professor Higgins?
Yeah. Good morning. Sit down.
Morning, Governor. I come about a very serious matter, Governor.
Brought up in Hounslow, Mother Welsh, I should think. What do you want, Doolittle?
I want my daughter. That's what I want, see?
Of course you do. You're her father, aren't you? You don't suppose anyone else wants her, do you? I'm glad to see you have some spark of family feeling left. She's upstairs. Take her away at once.
What? No, look here, Governor. Is this reasonable? Is it fair to take advantage of a man like this? The girl belongs to me. You got her. Where do I come in?
Your daughter had the audacity to come to my house and ask me to teach her how to speak properly so that she could get a place in a flower shop. How dare you come here and attempt to blackmail me? You sent her here on purpose.
Don't take a man up like that, Governor.
The police shall take you up. This is a plot to extort money by threats. I shall telephone for the police.
Have I asked for a brass farthing? I'll leave it to the gentleman here. Have I said a word about money?
What else did you come for?
Well, what would a man come for? Be human, Governor.
Alfred, if you didn't put her up to it, then how did you know she was here?
I'll tell you, Governor, if you'll only let me get a word in, I'm willing to tell you, I'm wanting to tell you, I'm waiting to tell you.
Pickering, this chap has a certain natural gift of rhetoric. Observe the rhythm of his native wood notes wild. I'm willing to tell you, I'm wanting to tell you, I'm waiting to tell you. Sentimental rhetoric. That's the Welsh strain in him.
How did you know the girl was here if you didn't send her?
It was like this, Governor. When you was willing for her to stop here, she sent a boy back to pick up her things. I ran into him and he told me what was up. And I asked you, what was my feelings and my duty as a father? I says to the boy, you give me the luggage, I says, I'll take it myself.
How much luggage?
Musical instrument, Governor, a few pictures, a trifle of jewellery and a bird cage. She said she didn't want no clothes. What was I to think from that, Governor? I asked you as a parent, what was I to think?
So you came to rescue her from worse than death, eh?
Just so, Governor, that's right.
Then you shall have your way, double quick. Mrs. Pearce?
No, Governor, don't say that. I'm not a man to stand in my girl's light. Here's a career opening for her, as you might say.
Mrs. Pearce opens the door and awaits orders.
Mrs. Pearce, this is Eliza's father. He has come to take her away. Give her to him.
He can't take her away, Mr. Higgins. How can he? You told me to burn her clothes.
That's right. I can't carry the girl through the streets like a blooming monkey, can I? I'll put it to you.
You have put it to me that you want your daughter. Take your daughter. If she has no clothes, go out and buy her some.
Where's the clothes she come in? Did I burn them or did your missus here?
I am the housekeeper, if you please. I have sent for some clothes for your girl. When they come, you can take her away. You can wait in the kitchen. This way.
Listen here, Governor. You and me is men of the world, ain't we?
Oh, men of the world, are we? You'd better go, Mrs. Pearce.
I think so indeed, sir.
She goes with dignity.
The floor is yours, Mr. Doolittle.
Oh, thank you, Governor. Well, the truth is, I've taken a sort of fancy to you, Governor, and if you want the girl, I'm not so set on having her back home again, but what I might be open to is an arrangement. Regarded in the light of a young woman, she's a fine, handsome girl. All I ask is my rights as a father, and you're the last man alive who'd expect me to let her go for nothing, for I can see you're one of the straight sort, Governor. Well, what's a £5 note to you? And what's Eliza to me?
I think you ought to know, Doolittle, that Mr. Higgins's intentions are entirely honourable.
Of course they are, Governor. If I thought they wasn't, I'd ask 50.
Do you mean to say, you callous rascal, that you would sell your daughter for £50?
Have you no morals, man?
Can't afford them, Governor. Neither could you if you was as poor as me. Not that I mean any harm, mind you. But if Eliza's going to get a bit out of this, why not me too, eh? Look at it my way. What am I, governors both? I ask you, what am I? I'm one of the undeserving poor, that's what I am. Think what that means to a man. It means he's up against middle-class morality for all the time. If there's anything going and I put in for a bit of it, it's always the same story. You can't have it. But you're undeserving. But my needs is as great as the most deserving widows that's ever got money out of 6 different charities in 1 week for the death of the same husband. I don't need less than a deserving man. I need more. I don't eat less hearty than he does, and I drink a lot more. I'm playing straight with you. I ain't pretended to be deserving. I'm undeserving. And I mean to go on being undeserving. I like it. And that's the truth. But will you take advantage of a man's nature to do him out of the price of his own daughter, what he's brought up, fed and clothed with the sweat of his brow till she's grown big enough to be interesting to you two gentlemen? It's £5 unreasonable. I'll put it to you and I'll leave it to you.
Pickering, if we were to take this man in hand for 3 months, he could choose between a seat in the cabinet and a popular pulpit in Wales.
What do you say to that, Doolittle?
Not me, Governor, thank you kindly. I've heard all the preachers and all the prime ministers, and I tell you, it's a dog's life any way you look at it. Undeserving poverty is my line. To my taste, it's the only life that has any ginger in it.
I suppose we must give him a £5.
He'll make a bad use of it, I'm afraid.
Not me, Governor, not so help me I won't. Just one good spree for myself and the missus, giving pleasure to ourselves and employment to others. And satisfaction to you to know it ain't been thrown away. You couldn't spend it better.
This is irresistible. Let's give him 10.
No, Governor, £10 is a lot of money. It makes a man feel prudent-like, and then goodbye to happiness. Now, you give me what I asked for, Governor, not a penny more, not a penny less.
Why don't you marry that mistress of yours? I'd rather draw the line at encouraging that sort of immorality.
Tell her so, Governor, tell her so. I'm willing. It's me that suffers by it. I'm a slave to that woman, Governor, just because I ain't a lawful husband. Take my advice, Governor. Marry Eliza while she's young and don't know no better. If you don't, you'll be sorry for it after.
Pickering, if we listen to this man another minute, we shall have no convictions left. £5, I think you said, and you're sure you won't take 10?
Not now. Another time, Governor.
Here you are.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning.
He hurries to the door, anxious to get away with his booty, when Mrs. Pearce enters with a dainty and exquisitely clean young lady in a Japanese kimono. He gets out of the girl's way deferentially and apologizes.
Oh, beg pardon, miss.
Go on, don't you know your own daughter?
Blimey! It's Eliza!
What's that? This?
By Jove!
Don't I look silly? I should look all right with my hat on.
A new fashion, by George, and it ought to look horrible.
Well, I never thought she'd clean up as good looking as that, Governor. She's a credit to me, ain't she?
I tell you, it's easy to clean up here. Hot and cold water on tap, just as much as you like there is.
I'm glad the bathroom met with your approval.
It did, except for one thing. I had a good mind to break it. I didn't know which way to look, but I hung a towel over it, I did.
Over what?
Over the looking glass, sir.
Doolittle, you have brought your daughter up too strictly.
Don't put it on me, Governor. She ain't accustomed to it, you see, that's all. Well, she'll soon pick up on your free and easy ways.
Oh, I'm a good girl, I am. I won't pick up no free and easy ways.
Eliza, if you say again that you're a good girl, your father shall take you home.
Not him. You don't know my father. All he come up here for was to touch you was for some money to get drunk on.
Don't you give me none of your lip. And don't let me hear you giving this gentleman any of it neither, see? If you want Eliza's mind improved, Governor, you do it yourself, with a strap. So long, gentlemen.
Stop. You'll come regularly to see your daughter. It's your duty, you know. My brother is a clergyman, and he could help you in your talks with her.
Certainly. I'll come, Governor. Not just this week because I have a job at a distance, but later on you may depend on me. Afternoon, gentlemen. Afternoon, ma'am.
He exits.
Don't you believe the old liar? He'd rather be chased by a bulldog than meet a clergyman. You won't see him again in a hurry.
I don't want to, Eliza. Do you?
Not me. I don't want never to see him again, I don't. He's a disgrace to me, he is. Collecting dust instead of working in his proper trade.
And what is his trade, Eliza?
Working for a builder. But more likely you'll find him talking money out of people's pockets into his own. Say, aren't you going to call me Miss Doolittle anymore?
I beg your pardon, Miss Doolittle. It was a slip of the tongue.
Oh, I don't mind. Only it sounded so genteel. Mrs. Pearce says you're going to give me some new clothes to wear in bed at night. Different to what I wear in the daytime. Different clothes for bed? It do seem a waste of money when you could buy something to wear outdoors.
Mrs. Pearce enters.
Now, Eliza, the new things have come for you to try on.
Ah!
And Eliza rushes out.
Oh, don't rush about like that, girl.
Mrs. Pearce exits and shuts the door behind her.
Pickering, we have taken on a stiff job.
Higgins, we have.
Act 3. Mrs. Higgins' elegant London home. It is the afternoon of one of her at-home days, when she is available for her society friends to drop by and make their social calls. There are no callers yet, and she sits at the desk writing a letter. The quiet serenity is interrupted when Higgins comes bursting into the room with his hat on.
Henry, what are you doing here today? It's my at-home day. You promised not to come.
Oh, bother.
Go home at once.
I know, Mother. I came on purpose.
But you mustn't. I'm serious, Henry. You offend all my friends. They stop coming whenever they meet you.
Nonsense. I know I have no small talk, but people don't mind.
Oh, don't they? Small talk indeed. What about your large talk? Really, dear, you mustn't stay.
I must. I've a job for you. You see, I've picked up a girl.
Does that mean some girl has picked you up?
Not at all. I don't mean a love affair.
What a pity.
Why?
Well, you never fall in love with anyone under 45. When you discover that there are some rather nice-looking young women about.
Oh, I can't be bothered with young women. My idea of a lovable woman is something as like you as possible. Besides, they're all idiots.
Do you know what you would do if you really loved me?
Oh, bother, what? Mary, I suppose?
No. Stop fidgeting and take your hands out of your pockets. That's a good boy. Now tell me about the girl.
She's coming to see you.
I don't remember asking her.
You didn't. I did. I asked her. If you'd known her, you wouldn't have asked her.
Indeed. Why?
Well, it's like this. She's a common flower girl. I picked her up off the curbstone.
And invited her to my at-home?
Oh, that'll be all right. I've taught her to speak properly, and she has strict orders as to her behavior. She's to keep to 2 subjects, the weather and everybody's health. Fine day and how do you do, you know, and not to let herself go on things in general. That'll be safe.
Safe? To talk about our health, about our insides, perhaps about our outsides. How could you be so silly, Henry?
Well, she must talk about something. Oh, she'll be all right. Don't you fuss. Pickering is in it with me. I've sort of a bet on that I'll pass her off as a duchess in 6 months. I started on her some months ago, and she's getting on like a house on fire. She has a quick ear, and she's been much easier to teach than my middle-class pupils because she's had to learn a complete new language. She talks English almost as you talk French.
That's satisfactory at all events.
Well, it is and it isn't.
What does that mean?
You see, I've got her pronunciation all right, but you have to consider not only how a girl pronounces, but what she pronounces, and that's where I'll...
Now interrupted by the butler, announcing guests.
Mrs. and Miss Enysford-Hill.
Oh, Lord.
Mrs. and Miss Enysford-Hill enter. They are the mother and daughter who sheltered from the rain outside the theatre.
How do you do?
How do you do?
My son, Henry.
Your celebrated son. I have so longed to meet you, Professor Higgins.
Delighted.
How do you do?
I've seen you somewhere before. I haven't the ghost of a notion where, but
I'm sorry to say that my celebrated son has no manners. You mustn't mind him.
I don't.
Not at all.
Oh, have I been rude? I didn't mean to be.
The butler returns, ushering in Pickering.
Colonel Pickering, ma'am.
How do you do, Mrs. Higgins?
So glad you've come. Do you know Mrs. Enysford-Hill? Miss Enysford-Hill?
Has Henry told you what we've come for?
We were interrupted. Damn it.
Oh, Henry, really?
Are we in the way?
No, you couldn't have come more fortunately. We want you to meet a friend of ours.
Yes, by George. We want 2 or 3 people. You'll do as well as anybody else.
The butler returns, ushering Freddy.
Mr. Enysford-Hill.
God of heaven, another of them.
How do you do?
Very good of you to come. Colonel Pickering.
How do you do?
I don't think you know my son, Professor Higgins.
How do you do?
I'll take my oath. I've met you before somewhere. Where was it?
I don't think so.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Well, here we are, anyhow. Now, what the devil are we going to talk about until Eliza comes?
Henry, you are the life and soul of Royal Society soirees, but really, you're rather trying on more commonplace occasions.
Am I? Very sorry. I suppose I am, you know.
I sympathize. I haven't any small talk. If people would only be frank and say what they really think.
Lord forbid.
But why?
Do you suppose it would be really agreeable if I were to come out now with what I really think?
Is it so very cynical?
Cynical? Who the dickens said it was cynical? I mean, it wouldn't be decent.
Oh, I'm sure you don't mean that, Mr. Higgins.
You see, we're all savages, more or less. We're supposed to be civilized and cultured, to know all about poetry and philosophy and art and science and so on, but how many of us know even the meanings of those names? What do you know of poetry? And what do you know of science? And what does he know of art or science or anything else? What the devil do you imagine I know of philosophy?
Or of manners, Henry?
The butler enters with a transformed Eliza, who's exquisitely dressed. Eliza produces an impression of such remarkable distinction and beauty as she enters that they all rise, quite flustered.
Miss Doolittle.
Here she is, Mother.
How do you do, Mrs. Higgins? Mr. Higgins told me I might come.
Quite right. I'm very glad indeed to see you.
How do you do, Miss Doolittle?
Colonel Pickering, is it not?
I feel sure that we have met before, Miss Doolittle. I remember your eyes.
How do you do?
My daughter, Clara.
How do you do?
How do you do?
I've certainly had the pleasure.
My son, Freddy.
How do you do?
Ah, by George, yes, it all comes back to me. Covent Garden. What a damn
Henry,
thing.
please! Don't sit on my writing table, you'll break it.
Sorry.
A long and painful pause ensues.
Will it rain, do you think?
The shallow depression in the west of these islands is likely to move slowly in an easterly direction. There are no indications of any great change in the barometrical situation.
How awfully funny.
What is wrong with that, young man? I bet I got it right.
Killing.
I'm sure I hope it won't turn cold. There's so much influenza about. It runs right through our whole family regularly every spring.
My aunt died of influenza, so they said. But it's my belief that they done the old woman in.
Done her in?
Yes, Lord love you. Why should she die of influenza when she come through diphtheria right enough the year before? I saw her with my own eyes. Fairly blue with it she was. They all thought she was dead. But my father, he kept ladling gin down her throat till she come to so sudden that she bit the bowl off the spoon.
Dear me!
What call would a woman with that strength in her have to die of influenza? And what become of her new straw hat that should have come to me? Somebody pinched it. And what I say is, them as pinched it done her in.
What does doing her in mean?
That's the new small talk. To do a person in means to kill them.
You surely don't believe that your aunt was killed?
Do I not? Them she lived with would have killed her for a hat pin, let alone a
But it
hat.
can't have been right for your father to pour spirits down her throat like that. It might have killed her.
Not her. Gin was mother's milk to her. Besides, he poured so much down his own throat that he knew the good of it.
Do you mean that he drank?
Drink, my word, something chronic.
How dreadful for you.
Not a bit. It never did him no harm from what I could see, but then he did not keep it up regular. A drop of booze just made him happy. Here, what are you sniggering at?
The new small talk. You do it so awfully well.
If I was doing it proper, what was you laughing at? Have I said anything I oughtn't?
Not at all, Miss Doolittle.
Oh, well, that's a mercy anyhow. What I always say is...
Higgins looks looks at his watch, giving Eliza the hint that it's time to leave.
Well, I must go. So pleased to have met you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Colonel Pickering.
Goodbye, Miss Doolittle.
Goodbye, all.
Are you walking across the park, Miss Doolittle? If so, I'd be more than happy.
Walk? Not bloody likely. I'm going in a taxi.
Eliza exits, leaving the remaining guest stunned at her having used the dreaded B word that Mrs. Pearce was so concerned about.
Well, I really can't get used to the new way.
Oh, it's all right, Mamma, quite right. People will think we never go anywhere or see anybody if you're so old-fashioned.
I dare say I am very old-fashioned, but I do hope you won't begin using that expression, Clara. I have got accustomed to hear you calling everything filthy and beastly, though I do think it horrible and unladylike. But this last is really too much.
It's all a matter of habit. Nobody means anything by it, and it's so quaint. It gives such a small emphasis to things that are not themselves very witty. I find the new small talk delightful and quite innocent.
Well, after that, I think it's time for us to go.
Oh, yes. We have 3 at-homes to go to. Goodbye, Mrs. Higgins. Goodbye, Colonel Pickering. Goodbye, Professor Higgins.
Goodbye. Be sure you try on that small talk at the 3 at-homes. Don't be nervous about it. Pitch it in strong.
Oh, I will. Goodbye. Such nonsense, all this early Victorian prudery.
Such damn nonsense.
Such bloody nonsense.
Clara!
He goes out radiant, conscious of being thoroughly up to date with the new small talk.
I ask you, goodbye.
Goodbye, Mr. Enysford-Hill. Would you like to meet Miss Doolittle again?
Yes, I should. Most often.
Well, you know my at-home days.
Yes, thanks awfully. Goodbye.
Freddy exits, still love-struck by Eliza.
Goodbye, Mr. Higgins.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
It's no use. I shall never be able to bring myself to use that word.
Don't. It's not compulsory, you know. You'll get on quite well without it.
Only Clara is so down on me if I'm not positively reeking with the latest slang. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Mrs. Enysford-Hill then leads Mrs. Higgins toward the door for a little confidential chat.
You mustn't mind Clara. We're so poor, and she gets to so few parties, poor girl. She doesn't quite know, but the boy is nice. Don't you think so?
Oh, quite nice. I shall always be delighted to see him.
Thank you, dear. Goodbye.
She goes out, leaving Henry, Mrs. Higgins, and Pickering alone.
Well, is Eliza presentable?
You silly boy, of course she's not presentable. She's a triumph of your art and of her dressmakers. But if you suppose for a moment that she doesn't give herself away in every sentence she utters, you must be perfectly cracked about her.
But don't you think something might be done? I mean, something to eliminate the sanguinary element from her conversation.
Not as long as she's in Henry's hands.
Do you mean that my language is improper?
No, dearest, it would be quite proper, say on a canal barge. But it would not be proper for her at a garden party.
Well, I must say...
Colonel Pickering, will you tell me what is the exact state of things on Wimpole Street?
Well, I have come to live there with Henry. We work together at my Indian dialects, and we think it more convenient.
Right so, I know all about that. It's an excellent arrangement. But where does the girl live?
With us, of course. Where would she live?
But on what terms? Was she a servant? If not, what is she?
I think I know what you mean, Mrs. Higgins.
Well, dash me if I do. I've had to work at the girl every day for months to get her to her present pitch. Besides, she's useful. She knows where my things are and remembers my appointments and so forth.
Well, you certainly are a pretty pair of babies playing with your live doll.
Playing? The hardest job I've ever tackled, Mother. But you have no idea how frightfully interesting it is to take a human being and change her into quite a different human being by creating a new speech for her. It's filling up the deepest gulf that separates class from class and soul from soul.
Yes, it's enormously interesting. I assure you, Mrs. Higgins, we take Eliza very seriously. Every week, every day almost, there is some new change. We keep records of every stage, dozens of gramophone discs and photographs.
Yes, by Georgia, it's the most absorbing experiment I've ever tackled. She regularly fills our lives up.
We are always talking Eliza.
Teaching Eliza.
Dressing Eliza.
What?
Inventing new Elizas.
Yes, Henry. Colonel Pickering, don't you realize that when Eliza walked into Wimpole Street, a problem also walked in with her?
Oh, I see. The problem of how to pass her off as a lady.
I'll solve that problem. I've half solved it already.
No, you two infinitely stupid male creatures. The problem of what is to be done with her afterwards.
I don't see anything in that. She can go her own way with all the advantages I have given her.
The advantages of that poor woman who was just here now. The manners and habits of a fine lady without giving her a fine lady's income. Is that what you mean?
Oh, that would be all right, Mrs. Higgins.
We'll find her some light employment.
She's happy enough. Don't you worry about her. Goodbye.
Anyhow, there's no good bothering now. The thing's done. Goodbye, Mother. Say, Pickering, let's take her to the Shakespeare exhibition at Earl's
Yes,
Court.
let's. Her remarks will be delicious.
She'll mimic all the people for us when we get
Gripping.
home.
Both men exit with light-hearted amusement, leaving an angry and frustrated Mrs. Higgins alone. She tries to return to her letters, but slams the pen down furiously on her desk.
Men!
Intermission.
Thank you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying it. This is just halfway. You have a little bit of a break to get up, stretch your legs, refill a drink, visit the restroom. I promise there's no lines. At least there shouldn't be. And we will come back. It is 9:10 right now by my clock. Why don't we try to be back by 9:15 and we'll start soon thereafter. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Feel free, if you would like to pop and unmute yourself and chat, that's fine. Or feel free to use the chat on the side. And thank you. So I'm glad, I will break the silence, Dave Leon. You know me, I'll happily talk as much as I can. I think it's really interesting. You know, some of the comments on the side were talking about how so much of the dialogue is from the play is exactly translated. It was just literally licked up and picked up and put into the musical. What we've really found, or what we were discussing when we were in rehearsals for this, was how much songs enhance what is going on. We don't get in the play any of Eliza's journey and her connection with Higgins and Pickering when she's going through all of the elocution lessons, and how those little scenes of the rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain, how that really enhances and develops her character a little bit more. In the play, it's very sudden that she goes from kind of down on her luck to quick and sharp. To that that change is big. So the next, I mean, and this last scene in the musical is what's behind me, which is that Ascot scene. In the play, as you can tell, it was just Mrs. Higgins' house. But the stakes were a little bit different when you're at a formal event versus someone's at home. And if you've got any questions for me, I'm happy to answer anything that you might throw my way. So I see Kathy has a question. The hats, yes, some of them were from the costume shop. I did go over there and snagged a couple for Eliza and Freddy and Colonel Pickering. They all got special deliveries of hats from me. And then other than that, the cast has costumed themselves with anything that they found in their homes. And each person has a setup that is taken a lot of time to tweak and play with to find the right balance for sound and for lighting and all of that, all of those little details that kind of the next level of details. Dave, I do believe that, I don't know if he received any if George Bernard Shaw received any financial compensation from the My Fair Lady script, but he was acknowledged at least, and I believe still in the credits when we publish the credits of the, in the program, that we do have to acknowledge George Bernard Shaw.
Okay, so I'll just jump in here, sorry. I had to stand up to get here. So yes, indeed, George Bernard Shaw, sorry, I'm going to be the historian in the room. George Bernard Shaw did indeed receive royalties. He was not at all pleased with the change between the ending of Pygmalion and My Fair Lady. They had quite a large fight about it. And Rex Harrison used to, whenever he didn't like something that was going on, either the lyrics or the libretto, he would sit there and go, "Where's my penguin?" Because it was published by Penguin. And he would go, "Where's my penguin? And where's my penguin?" And one day Mosshart was so fed up with it, he put a penguin, stuffed penguin on a skateboard for all intents and purposes and rolled it on stage as Harrison was bemoaning the changes between Pygmalion and My Fair Lady.
And My Fair Lady, oh my gosh. That's amazing.
And the original Hirschfeld artwork for My Fair Lady, where it's the puppeteering of Higgins and Eliza, the puppet in the cloud is actually George Bernard Shaw.
Oh.
It's actually a character Shaw.
Oh, how cool.
So there's my little, one of the best books I've ever read on musical theater is Alan J. Lerner's autobiography, The Street Where I Live.
Oh, okay.
Everything you ever want to know about My Fair Lady, you can learn from that book.
Oh, cool. I'll definitely have to look that up too. We have a question from Brett, a question about the guy playing Eliza's father, Alfred Doolittle. Is he really good? He is really good. Have we seen him on stage with SBMT in the past? Yes, that is Jay Steele, who not only was Alfred Doolittle in our production of My Fair Lady, but you also saw him in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I hope I didn't butcher that too much, my pronunciation. He was Frollo. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you. All right, it is 9:17. I hope all of my cast has come back. I'm going to turn it back to Kim and the rest of our cast for Act 2 and Act 5. I'm sorry, Act 4 and Act 5. I can count. Goodbye.
Act 4. Higgins' Wimpole Street Laboratory after midnight on a summer's evening. The residents are returning from a formal event. Higgins and Pickering enter in their evening dress, followed by Eliza, stunningly attired in an opera cloak, brilliant gown, diamonds, fan, flowers, and all accessories. Her silent, brooding manner is in stark contrast to the men's joviality.
I say, Pick, lock up, will you? I shan't be going out again.
Right. Can Mrs. Pearce go to bed? We don't want anything more, do we?
Lord, no.
I say, Mrs. Pearce will row if we leave these things lying about in the drawing room.
Oh, chuck them over the banisters into the hall. She'll find them there in the morning and put them away all right. She'll think we were drunk.
We are, slightly. Are there any letters?
I didn't look. I wonder where the devil my slippers are.
Eliza looks at him darkly, then leaves the room.
Only circulars and this coroneted billet doux for you.
Let's have a look. Our money lender.
He throws the letter into the fire as Eliza returns with a pair of large downette heel slippers. She places them on the carpet before Higgins and sits without a word.
Oh, Lord, what an evening. What a crew. What a silly tomfoolery.
He raises his shoe to unlace it and catches sight of the slippers. He stops unlacing and looks at them as if they had appeared there of their own accord.
Oh, they're there, aren't they?
Well, I feel a bit tired. It's been a long day. The garden party, a dinner party, and the opera. Rather too much of a good thing. But you've won your bet, Higgins. Eliza did the trick and something to spare, eh?
Thank God it's over.
Eliza flinches violently, but they take no notice of her, and she recovers herself and sits stonily as before.
Were you nervous at the garden party? I was. Eliza didn't seem a bit nervous.
Oh, she wasn't nervous. I knew she'd be all right. It was interesting enough at first while we were at the phonetics, but after that I got deadly sick of it. If I hadn't backed myself to do it, I should have chucked the whole thing up 2 months ago. The whole thing has been a bore.
Oh, come. The garden party was frightfully exciting. My heart began beating like anything.
Yes, for the first 3 minutes. But when I saw we were going to win hands down, I lost all interest. I tell you, Pickering, never again for me. No more artificial duchesses. The whole thing has been simple purgatory.
Anyhow, it was a great success, an immense success. There's always something professional about doing a thing superlatively well.
Indeed. However, it's over and done with, and now I can go to bed at last without dreading tomorrow.
Eliza's expression grows increasingly murderous.
I think I shall turn in too. Still, it's been a great occasion, a triumph for you. Good night.
Good night. Put out the lights, Eliza, and tell Mrs. Pearce not to make coffee for me in the morning. I'll take tea.
Eliza tries to control herself and feel indifferent as she rises and walks to the hearth to switch off the lights. By the time she gets there, she is on the point of screaming. Finally, she gives way and flings herself furiously on the floor, raging.
What the devil have I done with my slippers?
She snatches up the slippers, hurling them at him one after the other with all her force.
There, your slippers! And there! Take your slippers and may you never have another day's luck with them!
What on earth? What's the matter? Get up. What's wrong?
Nothing wrong with you. I've won your bet for you, haven't I? That's enough for you. I don't matter, I suppose.
You won my bet. You. Presumptuous insect. I won it. And why did you throw those slippers at me for?
Because I wanted to smash your face. I'd like to kill you, you selfish brute. Why didn't you leave me where you picked me out of, in the gutter? You thank God it's all over, and that now you can throw me back there again, do you?
The creature is nervous after
Eliza
all.
gives a suffocated scream of fury and instinctively darts her nails at his face. Higgins grabs her wrists to restrain her.
Would you... Claws in, you cat! How dare you show your temper to me. Sit down and be quiet.
What's to become of me? I know you don't care. You wouldn't care if I was dead. I'm nothing to you, not so much as them slippers.
Those slippers.
Those slippers! I didn't think it made any difference now.
Why have you begun going on like this? May I ask whether you complain of your treatment here?
No.
Has anybody behaved badly to you? Colonel Pickering, Miss Pearce, any of the servants?
No.
I presume you don't pretend that I have treated you badly?
No.
I'm glad to hear it. Perhaps you're tired after the strain of the day. I suppose it was natural for you to be anxious about the garden party, but it's all over now. There's nothing more to worry about.
No, nothing more for you to worry about. Oh, God, I wish I was dead.
Why? In heaven's name, why? Listen to me, Eliza. All this irritation is purely subjective.
I don't understand. I'm too ignorant.
It's only imagination. Low spirits and else. You go to bed like a good girl and sleep it off. Have a little cry and say your prayers. That'll make you comfortable.
I heard your prayers. Thank God it's all over.
Well, don't you thank God it's all over? Now you're free and you can do what you like.
What am I fit for? What have you left me fit for? Where am I to go? What am I to do?
Oh, that's what's worrying you, isn't it? I shouldn't bother about it if I were you. I should imagine you won't have much difficulty in settling yourself somewhere or other, though I hadn't quite realized you were going away. You might marry, you know. You see, all men not confirmed, old bachelors like me and the Colonel, most men are the marrying sort, poor devils. And you're not bad looking. It's quite a pleasure to look at you sometimes. Not now, of course, because you're crying and looking as ugly as the very devil, but when you're all right and quite yourself, you're what I should call attractive. I dare say my mother could find some chap or other who would do very well.
We were above that at the corner of Tottenham Court Road.
What do you mean?
I sold flowers. I didn't sell myself. Now you've made a lady of me, I'm not fit to sell anything else.
Tosh, Eliza, don't you insult human relations by dragging all this cant about buying and selling into it. You needn't marry a fellow if you don't like him.
What else am I to do?
Oh, lots of things. What about your old idea of a florist's shop? Pickering could set you up in one. He's lots of money. Come, you'll be all right. I must clear off to bed. I'm devilishly sleepy. Oh, by the way, I came down for something. I forget what it was.
Your slippers.
Oh, yes, of course. You shied them at me.
Before you go, sir.
Eh?
Do my clothes belong to me or to Colonel Pickering?
What the devil use would they be to Pickering?
He might want them for the next girl you pick up to experiment on.
Is that the way you feel toward us?
All I want to know is whether anything belongs to me. I want to know what I may take away with me. I don't want to be accused of stealing.
Stealing? You shouldn't have said that, Eliza. It shows a want of feeling.
I'm sorry, I'm only a common ignorant girl, and in my station I have to be careful. There can't be any feelings between the like of you and the like of me. Please, will you tell me what belongs to me and what doesn't?
You may take the whole damned houseful if you like. Except the jewels. They're hired. Will that satisfy you?
Stop, please.
She unceremoniously takes off her jewels.
Will you take these to your room and keep them safe? I don't want to run the risk of their being missing.
Hand them over. If these belong to me instead of the jeweler, I'd ram them down your ungrateful throat.
This ring isn't the jeweler's. It's the one you bought me in Brighton. I don't want it now.
Higgins takes the ring and dashes it violently into the fireplace, then turns on her so threateningly that she crouches with her hands over her face.
Don't you hit me!
Hit you? You infamous creature! How dare you accuse me of such a thing? It is you who have hit me. You've wounded me to the heart.
I'm glad I've got a little of my own back anyhow.
You have caused me to lose my temper, a thing that has hardly ever happened to me before. I prefer to say nothing more tonight. I'm going to bed.
You better leave a note for Mrs. Pearce about the coffee, for she won't be told by me.
Damn Mrs. Pearce. Damn the coffee, and damn you, and damn my own folly for having lavished my hard-earned knowledge and the treasure of my regard and intimacy on a heartless gutter snipe!
He goes out with impressive decorum and spoils it by slamming the door savagely. Eliza smiles for the first time, then rages silently for a few moments, and finally goes down on her knees on the hearthrug to look for the ring. Act 5, Mrs. Higgins' drawing room. She's at her writing table as before. The butler comes in.
Mr. Henry, ma'am, is downstairs with Colonel Pickering.
Well, show them up.
They're using the telephone, ma'am. They're telephoning to the police,
What?
I think. Mr. Henry is in a state, ma'am. I thought I'd better tell you.
If you had told me that Mr. Henry was not in a state, it would have been more surprising. Tell them to come up when they've finished with the police. I suppose he's lost something.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. And go upstairs and tell Miss Doolittle that Mr. Henry and the Colonel are here. Ask her not to come down till I send for her.
Yes, ma'am.
Higgins bursts in. He is, as the butler has said, in a state. But Mrs. Higgins calmly keeps writing as he fumes.
Look here, Mother. Here's a confounded thing.
Yes, dear. Good morning. What is it?
Eliza's bolted.
You must have frightened her.
Frightened her? Nonsense. She was left last night, as usual, to turn out the lights and all that, and instead of going to bed, she changed her clothes and went right off. Her bed wasn't slept in. She came in a cab for her things before 7 this morning, and that fool, Mrs. Pearce, let her have them without telling me a word about it. What am I to do?
Do without, I'm afraid, Henry. The girl has a perfect right to leave if she chooses.
But I can't find anything. I don't know what appointments I've got. I can't.
Pickering comes in. Mrs. Higgins puts down her pen and turns away from the writing table.
Good morning, Mrs. Higgins. Has Henry told you?
What does that ass of an inspector say? Have offered him a reward.
You don't mean to say you have set the police after Eliza?
Of course. What are the police for? What else could we do?
The inspector made a lot of difficulties. I really think he suspected us of some improper purpose.
Well, of course he did. What right have you to go to the police and give the girl's name as if she were a thief or a lost umbrella or something? Really?
But we want to find her.
We can't let her go like this, you know, Mrs. Higgins. What were we to do?
You have no more sense, either of you, than two children. Why, I've good
Comes
mind.
in and breaks off the conversation.
Mr. Henry, a gentleman wants to see you very particular. He's been sent on from Wimpole Street.
Bother. I can't see anyone now. Who is it?
Mr. Doolittle, sir.
Doolittle? Do you mean the dustman?
Dustman? Oh, no, sir. A gentleman.
By George, Pickett. It's some relative of hers that she's gone to. Somebody we know nothing about. Send him up, quick.
Yes, sir.
Genteel relatives. Now we shall hear something.
Do you know any of her people?
Only her father, the fellow we told you about.
Mr. Doolittle.
Doolittle enters, brilliantly dressed in a new fashionable frock coat with white waistcoat and grey trousers, a flower in his buttonhole, and a silk hat. He's too concerned with the business he has come on to notice Mrs. Higgins. He walks straight to Higgins and accosts him with vehement reproach.
See here, do you see this? You've done this.
Done what, man?
This. I'll tell you, look at it. Look at this hat. Look at this coat.
Has Eliza been buying you clothes?
Eliza. Not she, not her. Why would she buy me clothes?
Oh, good morning, Mr. Doolittle. Won't you sit down?
Asking your pardon, Mum. Thank you. I am so full of what Mr. Higgins has done to me that I can't think of anything else.
Have you found Eliza?
Have you lost her?
Yes.
You have all the luck you have. I ain't found her. But she'll find me quick enough now after you've seen what you've done to me.
But what has my son done to you, Mr. Doolittle?
Done to me? Ruined me, destroyed me happiness, tied me up and delivered me into the hands of middle-class morality. Mr. Higgins, did you or did you not write a letter to an old blighter in America that was given $5 million to found moral reform societies?
What? Ezra D. Warnerfeller. He's dead.
Yes, he's dead, and I'm done for. Now, did you or did you not write a letter to him to say that the most original moralist at present in England, to the best of your knowledge, was Alfred Doolittle, a common dustman?
After your last visit, I remember making some silly joke of the kind in my letter.
Ah, you may well call it a silly joke. It put the lid on me right enough. Just give him the chance he wanted. Thanks to your silly joking, he leaves me £3,000 a year on condition that I lecture for his Moral Reform World League as often as they ask me, up to 6 times a year.
The devil he does. What a lark.
A safe thing for you, Doolittle. They won't ask you twice.
It ain't the lecturing I mind. I'll lecture him till I'm blue in the face, I will. It's making me a gentleman that I object to. Who asked him to make a gentleman of me? I was happy. I was free. I touched everybody for money when I wanted it, same as I touched you, Henry Higgins. Now, everybody touches me for money. A year ago, I hadn't a relative in the world except 2 or 3 that wouldn't talk to me. Now, I've 50 and not a decent week's wages among the lot of them. You talk of losing Eliza. Don't you be anxious. I bet she's on my doorstep by this. And the next one to touch me will be you, Henry Higgins. I'll have to learn to speak middle-class language from you instead of speaking proper English. That's where you'll come in. And I dare say that's what you did it for.
But my dear Mr. Doolittle, you need not suffer all this if you are really in earnest. Nobody can force you to accept this bequest. You can repudiate it. Isn't that so, Colonel Pickering?
I believe so.
That's the tragedy of it, ma'am. It's easy to say, chuck it, but I haven't the nerve. Which one of us has? We're all intimidated. Intimidated, ma'am, that's what we are. What is there for me if I chuck it but the workhouse in my old age? And I haven't the nerve for the workhouse. Intimidated, that's what I am. Broke, bought up. Happier men than me will call for my dust and touch me for their tip, and I'll look on helpless and envy them. And that's what your son has brought me to.
Well, I'm very glad you're not going to do anything foolish, Mr. Doolittle. But this solves the problem of Eliza's future. You can provide for her now.
Yes, Mum, I'm expected to provide for everyone now, out of $3,000 a year.
Nonsense. He can't provide for her. He shan't provide for her. She doesn't belong to him. I paid him £5 for
Henry,
her.
don't be absurd. If you really where
Upstairs.
Eliza is. She's
upstairs. Then I shall jolly soon fetch her downstairs.
Be quiet, Henry. Sit down.
Oh, very well, very well, very well. But I think you might have told me this half an hour
Eliza
ago.
came to me this morning. She passed the night partly walking about in a rage, partly trying to throw herself into the river and being afraid to, and partly at the Carlton Hotel. She told me of the brutal way you two treated her.
What?
My dear Mrs. Higgins, she's been telling you stories. We didn't treat her brutally. We hardly said a word to her. And we parted on particularly good terms. Higgins, did you bully her after I went to bed?
Just the other way about. The slippers came bang into my face the moment I entered the room, before I'd uttered a word.
But why? What did we do to her?
I think I know pretty well what you did. She'd become attached to you both. She worked very hard for you, Henry. Then it seems that when the great day of trial came, and she did this wonderful thing for you without making a single mistake, you two sat there and never said a word to her, but talked together of how glad you were that it was all over and that you had been bored with the whole thing. And then you were surprised because she threw your slippers at you? I should have thrown the firearms.
We said nothing except that we were tired and wanted to go to bed. Did we, Pick?
That was all.
You didn't thank her, or pet her, or admire her, or tell her how splendid she'd been.
But she knew all about that. We didn't make speeches to her, if that's what you mean.
Perhaps we were a little inconsiderate. Is she very angry?
Well, I'm afraid she won't go back to Whitehall Street, especially now that Mr. Doolittle is able to keep up the position you have thrust on her. But she says she's quite willing to meet you on friendly terms and let bygones be bygones.
Is she, by George? Oh!
You promised to behave yourself, Henry. I'll ask her to come down. If not, go home, for you have taken up quite enough of my time.
Oh, all right. Very well. Pick, you behave yourself. Let us put on our best Sunday manners for this creature that we picked up out of the mud.
Remember your promise, Henry.
She presses the bell button on the writing table.
Mr. Doolittle, would you be so good as to step out on the balcony for a moment? I don't want Eliza to have the shock of your news until she has made it up with these two gentlemen. Would you mind?
As you wish, lady. Anything to help Henry to keep her off my hands.
The butler answers the bell as Doolittle disappears through the French doors onto the balcony.
Ask Miss Doolittle to come down, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Henry, be good.
I am behaving myself perfectly.
He is doing his best, Mrs. Higgins.
Where the devil is that girl? Are we to wait here all day?
Eliza enters, sunny, self-possessed, and giving a staggeringly convincing exhibition of ease of manner.
How do you do, Professor Higgins? Are you quite well?
Am I?
But of course you are. You are never ill. So glad to see you again, Colonel Pickering. Quite chilly this morning, isn't it?
Don't you dare try this game on me. I taught it to you. Now get up and come home and don't be a fool.
Very well put indeed, Henry. No woman could resist such an invitation.
Eliza takes a piece of needlework from her basket and begins to stitch at it, without taking the least notice of this outburst.
You will jolly soon see whether she has an idea that I haven't put into her head, or a word that I haven't put into her mouth. I tell you, I have created this thing out of the squashed cabbage leaves of Covent Garden, and now she pretends to play the fine lady with me.
Yes, dear, but you'll sit down, won't you?
Will you drop me altogether now that the experiment is over, Colonel Pickering?
Oh, don't. You mustn't think of it as an experiment. It shocks me somehow.
Oh, I'm only a squashed cabbage leaf.
No!
But I owe so much to you that I should be very unhappy if you forgot me.
It's very kind of you to say so, Miss Doolittle.
It was from you that I learned really nice manners. You see, it was so very difficult for me, with the example of Professor Higgins always before me. I should never have known that ladies and gentlemen didn't behave like that if you hadn't been there.
Well.
Oh, that's only his way, you know. He doesn't mean it.
Do you know what began my real education?
What?
Your calling me Miss Doolittle that day when I first came to Wimpole Street. That was the beginning of self-respect for me. And there were 100 little things you never noticed because they came naturally to you. Things that you showed you thought about me as if I were something better than a scullery maid. You never took off your boots in the dining room when I was there.
Oh, you mustn't mind that. Higgins takes off his boots all over the place.
I know. I'm not blaming him. It is his way, isn't it? You see, the difference between a lady and a flower girl is not how she behaves, but how she is treated. I shall always be a flower girl to Professor Higgins because he always treats me as a flower girl, and always will. But I know that I can be a lady to you because you always treat me as a lady, and always will.
Please don't grind your teeth, Henry.
Well, this is really very nice of you, Miss Doolittle.
I should like you to call me Eliza now, if you would.
Thank you. Eliza, of course.
And I should like Professor Higgins to call me Miss Doolittle.
He'll see you damned first.
Henry!
Why don't you slang back at him? Don't stand it. It would do him a lot of good.
I can't. I could have done it once, but now I can't go back to it. You told me that when a child is brought to a foreign country, it picks up the language in a few weeks and then forgets its own. Well, I am a child in your country. I have forgotten my own language and can speak nothing but yours. That's the real break-off with where I come from, and leaving Wimpole Street finishes it.
Oh, but you're coming back to Wimpole Street, aren't you? You'll forgive Higgins?
Forgive, will she? By George. Let her go. Let her find out how she can get on without us. She will relapse into the gutter in 3 weeks without me at her elbow.
He's incorrigible, Eliza. You won't relapse, will you?
No, not now. Never again. I've learned my lesson. I don't believe I could utter one of the old sounds if I tried.
Unseen by Eliza, Mr. Doolittle has come back into the room. When he touches her shoulder, she drops her needlework, losing her self-possession at the spectacle of her father's splendor.
Ow!
Just so. Ow! 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 Victory! Victory!
Oh, can you blame the girl? Don't look at me like that, Eliza. It ain't my fault. I've come into money.
You must have touched a millionaire this time, Dad.
I have, but I'm dressed something special today. I'm going to St. George's, Hanover Square. Your stepmother is going to marry me.
Why has she changed her mind, Doolittle?
Intimidated, Governor. Intimidated. Middle-class morality claims its victim. Won't you put on your hat, Eliza? Come and see me turned off?
Oh, well, just to show there's no ill feeling, I'll be back in a moment.
Eliza goes out.
I feel uncommon nervous about the ceremony, Colonel. I wish you'd come and see me through it.
But you've been through it before, man. You were married to Eliza's mother.
Who told you that, Colonel?
Well, nobody told me, but I concluded naturally.
No, that ain't the natural way, Colonel. It's only the middle class way. My way was always the undeserving way. But don't say nothing to Eliza. She don't know. I always had a sort of delicacy about telling her.
Quite right. We'll leave it so, if you don't mind.
And you'll come to the church, Colonel, and put me through straight?
With pleasure, as far as a bachelor can.
May I come, Mr. Doolittle? I should be very sorry to miss your wedding.
I should be indeed honoured by your condescension, ma'am, and my poor old woman would take it as a tremendous compliment. She's been very low, thinking about the happy days that are no more.
Well, I'll order the carriage and get ready. I shan't be more than 15 minutes.
As she goes to the door, Eliza comes in, hatted and buttoning her gloves.
I'm going to the church to see your father married, Eliza. You'd better come in the carriage with me. Colonel Pickering can go on with the bridegroom.
Mrs. Higgins goes out.
Bridegroom. What a word. It makes a man realise his position somehow.
Before I go, Eliza, do forgive him and come back to us.
I don't think Papa would allow me. Would you, Dad?
Oh, I don't grudge you two gents getting the better of Eliza. I shan't interfere with whatever you choose to do. Time for us to go, Colonel. So long, Henry. See you in St. George's, Eliza.
Do stay with us, Eliza.
Doolittle and Pickering exit.
Well, Eliza, you've had a bit of your own back, as you call it. Have you had enough?
You want me back only to pick up your slippers and put up with your tempers and fetch and carry for you.
I haven't said I wanted you back at all.
Oh, indeed. Then what are we talking about?
About you, not about me. If you come back, I shall treat you just as I have always treated you. I can't change my nature, and I don't intend to change my manners. My manners are exactly the same as Colonel Pickering's.
That's not true. He treats a flower girl as if she were a duchess.
And I treat a duchess as if she was a flower girl.
Oh, I see. The same to everybody.
Just so. The great secret, Eliza, is not having bad manners or good manners or any other particular sort of manners, but having the same manner for all human souls. The question is not whether I treat you rudely, but whether you ever heard me treat anyone else better.
I don't care how you treat me. I don't mind your swearing at me. I don't mind a black eye. I've had one before this. But I won't be passed over.
Then get out of my way, for I won't stop for you. You talk about me as if I were a motor bus.
So you are a motor bus. I'll bounce and go with no consideration for anyone. But I can do without you. Don't think I can't.
I know you can. I told you you could. You never asked yourself, I suppose, whether I could do without you.
Don't you try to get around me. You'll have to do without me.
I can do without anybody. I have my own soul, my own spark of divine fire. But I shall miss you, Eliza. I have learned something from your idiotic notions. I confess that humbly and gratefully. And I have grown accustomed to your voice and appearance. I like them, rather.
Well, you have them both on your gramophone and in your book of photographs. When you feel lonely without me, you can turn the machine on. It's got no feelings to hurt.
I can't turn your soul on. Leave me those feelings, and you can take away all the voice and the face. They are not you.
Oh, you are a devil. You can twist the heart in a girl as easy as some could twist her arms to hurt her. Mrs. Pearce warned me time and time again she has wanted to leave you, and you always got around her at the last minute. And you don't care a bit about her. And you don't care a bit for me.
I care for life, for humanity, and you are a part of it that has come my way and been built into my house. What more can you or anyone ask?
I won't care for anybody that doesn't care for me.
You call me a brute because you couldn't buy a claim on me by fetching my slippers and finding my spectacles. I think a woman fetching a man's slippers is a disgusting sight. I think a good deal more of you for throwing them in my face. If you come back for the sake of good fellowship. If you dare to set up your little dog's tricks of fetching and carrying slippers against my creation of a Duchess Eliza, I'll slam the door in your silly face.
What am I to come back for?
For the fun of it. That's why I took you on.
And you may throw me out tomorrow if I don't do everything you want me to.
Yes, and you may walk out tomorrow if I don't do everything you want me to.
And live with my stepmother?
Yes, or sell flowers, or would you rather marry Pickering?
I wouldn't marry you if you asked me, and you're nearer my age than what he is.
Than he is, not than what he is.
I'll talk as I like. You're not my teacher now.
I don't suppose Pickering would, though. But he's as confirmed an old bachelor as I am.
That's not what I want, and don't you think it. I've always had chaps enough wanting me that way. Freddy Hill writes to me 2 and 3 times a day, sheets and sheets.
Damn his impudence.
He has a right to it if he likes, poor lad, and he does love me.
You have no right to encourage him.
Every girl has a right to be loved.
What? By fools like that?
Freddy's not a fool, and if he's weak and poor and wants me, maybe he'd make me happier than my betters that bully me and don't want me.
In short, you want me to be as infatuated about you as Freddy, is that it?
No, I don't. That's not the sort of feeling I want from you. I want a little kindness. What I did, was not for the dresses and the taxis. I did it because we were pleasant together, and I came to care for you. Not to want you to make love to me, and not forgetting the difference between us, but more friendly-like.
Well, of course, that's just how I feel, and how Pickering feels. Eliza, you're a fool.
That's not a proper answer to give me.
If you're going to be a lady, you'll have to give up feeling neglected if the men you know don't spend half their time sniveling over you and the other half giving you black eyes. You find me cold, unfeeling, selfish, don't you? Very well. Be off with you to the sort of people you like. Marry some sentimental hog or other with lots of money and a thick pair of lips to kiss you with and a thick pair of boots to kick you with. If you can't appreciate what you've got, you'd better get what you can appreciate.
Oh, you are a cruel tyrant. I can't talk to you. You turn everything against me. I'm always in the wrong. But don't you be too sure that you have me under your feet to be trampled on and talked down. I'll marry Freddy, I will, as soon as he's able to support me.
Rubbish. I'm not going to have my masterpiece thrown away on Freddy.
You think I like you to say that. But if I can't have kindness, I'll have independence.
Independence?
I'll let you see whether I'm dependent on you. I'll go and be a teacher.
What will you teach in heaven's name?
What you taught me. I'll teach phonetics.
Ha, ha, ha.
I'll offer myself as an assistant to that Professor Zoltan Karpathy.
What? That imposter, that humbug. Teach him my methods, my discoveries. You take one step in that direction and I'll wring your neck. Do you hear?
Ring away! What do I care? I strike me one day.
He has laid hands on her, but he now lets her go, stamping with rage at having forgotten himself.
Aha! That's done you, Henry Higgins, it has. I'll advertise it in the papers that your Duchess is only a flower girl that you taught, and that she'll teach anybody to be a Duchess just the same in 6 months for 1,000 guineas. Oh, when I think of myself crawling under your feet, when all the time I had only to lift up my finger to be as good as you, I could just kick myself.
By George, Eliza. I said I'd make a woman of you, and I have. I like you like this. 5 minutes ago, you were like a millstone around my neck. Now you're a tower of strength. You and I and Pickering will be 3 old bachelors together instead of only 2 men and a silly girl.
Mrs. Higgins returns, dressed for the wedding. Eliza instantly becomes cool and elegant.
The carriage is waiting, Eliza. Are you ready?
Quite. Is the professor coming?
Certainly not. He can't behave himself in church. He makes remarks out loud all the time on the clergyman's pronunciation.
Then I shall not see you again, Professor. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Henry.
Goodbye, Mother. By the way, Eliza, order a ham and a Stilton cheese, will you? And buy me a pair of reindeer gloves, number 8, and a tie to match the new suit of mine at Eel and Binman's. You choose the color.
Buy them yourself.
Eliza sweeps gracefully out.
I'm afraid you've spoiled that girl, Henry. But never mind, dear. I'll buy you the tie and gloves.
Oh, don't bother. She'll buy them all right. Goodbye.
Mrs. Higgins gives her son a kiss and runs out. Higgins, left alone, rattles his cash in his pocket, chuckles, and disports himself in a highly self-satisfied manner.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for coming. We're going to take a quick moment to introduce all of our cast members as they turn on their video, and then we'll have a little moment of question and answer. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin, who's going to kick things off for us.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight. My name's Erin Reis, and I played Eliza Doolittle, and I am broadcasting from Newark, California today.
Hi, folks. Thank you also very much for coming. My name is Ray D'Ambrosio. I am broadcasting from Fremont, California.
I'm Chris Moylan, played Colonel Pickering, and I am broadcasting from the island of Maui in Hawaii.
And I'm Jay Steele, and I played Alfred Doolittle, and I'm broadcasting from good old San Jose.
I'm Dina Jacobsen, and I play Mrs. Higgins. I'm only 2 years older than Henry Higgins, and I'm broadcasting from Los Altos, California, and in my office.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Elyse. I played Mrs. Pearce, and I am broadcasting from San Jose.
Hi, I'm Robin Holbrook. I was Mrs. Enysford-Hill, and I'm in my flip-flops in Palo Alto.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Judge. I played Freddy, and I am broadcasting here in Oakland, California.
Hi, friends. I'm Morgan Dayley. I played Clara, and I am broadcasting from Wichita Falls, Texas.
Hi, I'm Mike Cuddy. I am broadcasting from Los Gatos, California, and I played the Butler and the Bystander at the beginning, and it's pajamas from the waist down.
And I am Kim Kay, and I was reading the stage directions from Campbell, California.
Thank you guys all so very much. Yeah, I will give you a round of applause. A round of applause. Barbara Henninger, I have to agree that we needed more Freddy in the play. I was quite sad when I actually read that show and saw that it was not. I saw Elizabeth Gertz had a question of how much did you guys rehearse? Who wants to answer that?
Well, we had 2 rehearsals all together, and I think we all did our own, reading and running over the new lines that weren't in the musical. There was some dialogue that was obviously cut from the musical just to allow room for the songs. So, I think we all kind of did our own research and put our own time into it, but just twice with the entire cast.
3 months, 3 years ago.
Well, yeah, a long time for the musical, but
yeah, there looks like there's a question that asks about the actors playing the corresponding characters. This is the cast from My Fair Lady that we did at SBMT 3 years ago. They're just as I cast them, and it was perfect because I loved hearing the lines here that mirrored the lines that we had 3 years ago. It was fun. It was a good time. So all these people played, except for Clara. Clara doesn't exist as a musical.
And I was in the ensemble. I wasn't.
You had the, what was your bit part role? What was her name?
Mrs. Hopkins.
That's Hopkins.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of our other company members in the audience here tonight too. So thank you guys. And I'm sorry I can't miss you all.
I miss you so much.
Best cast ever.
Morgan, who played Clara tonight, was our director 3 years ago.
That's right. And we are eternally grateful.
You guys.
Yay.
She also cast us as servants, those of us with small parts. So I was a servant in my son's home, which...
That's great. We actually did the entire show with 15 players. So we took a really large cast musical and we whittled it down. So Freddy also was a servant in the home when he wasn't actively being Freddy. So our characters took on multiple roles and were engaged in the entire production rather than just their little character spiel.
Which made for some interesting costume changes.
On our toes.
So there was a question too, do you guys prefer the ending that was in the play or the ending that was in the musical? They're both fairly, left for audience interpretation or the director's interpretation. So what do you guys think? Do you have I say our audience is chiming in on the chat, but what do our performers think?
The musical.
Musical, I think.
Yes,
I
like the alternate ending best.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about that.
I think this one's pretty final. Like this one, I don't think she goes back in this one. Like this one's pretty final, I think.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. So in the musical, it's kind of left up to the audience to decide, whether or not she goes back to Higgins. Well, she goes back to Higgins, but for what reason?
Nonsense. There's no ambiguity at all. She stays with me forever.
None.
We have a fun fact. Steve Simmons writes, George Bernard Shaw wrote an epilogue to the play to tell the story of what happens to Eliza after the play ends. I did not. Didn't know that.
So what happens?
I don't know.
It's Freddy, I think.
Yeah. She marries Freddy.
Oh, right. She marries Freddy.
Oh, Bernard Shaw said she married Freddy. Yay! Jan, here we get it.
Sentimental hog.
I don't have boots
Tell
though.
Freddy what to do. She knows how to control him. She does have to deal with Henry and his ego.
Sentimental.
I actually really liked staging the ending of our production of My Fair Lady. Before we even staged it, I had a conversation with Ray and with Erin, and I said, and separately, so I didn't have them in the same room. We actually did this over email, and I said, how does it end, friends? How do you feel like it ends? And there was a little thing that stuck out in my mind. Ray emailed me back and he said, I really think that they actually have a conversation. We don't know if they end up together. We know that they are in the same room at the ending of the play, but I think they actually sit down and have a real honest conversation. And so that's kind of how we ended ours, is they got in the same room together, they looked at each other, and there was some sort of hope going forward. So I liked staging our little ending with our little crew. They were great.
Fun.
That was beautiful. For our audience, if you have any further thoughts about kind of this format and how we did tonight, and any suggestions, I do have a couple of thank yous to do. We had in our audience tonight, there were understudies for every single role. So I'm going to give a little shout out. Derek and Cami DeMarco, and Barbara Henninger, Dallas Carter, Michael Hirsch, and Steve Salmon. Thank you guys for being backup crew. I appreciated it. And if were anything to happen to any of these guys, they would have jumped in. Nothing like live virtual theater. So any other questions, comments, please email me. My name is Sarah Dean, and it's sdean@southbaymt.com. And that's all I got. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Sarah did all.
Sarah, you're the best.
Sarah's amazing.
Sarah's amazing.
This was very fun. I have to say that I was not anticipating returning to directing through this format, but hey, you know, you roll with the punches.
You just let us know when we're going to remount and take it on tour, Sarah. We're ready.
I'm telling you, it needs to happen.
You just let us know when we remount.
You guys are the first people.
As soon as we're allowed to get more than 10 people in a space at a time.
Right.
Then the question comes, are you touring My Fair Lady or are you touring Pygmalion?
Yeah.
I think the musical.
Alternating evenings.
There you go.
Remind ourselves of the church choreography.
Yeah. If we alternate, we can save our voices in between, you know. So.
That's true. That's true. That is.
15 people, we could stay 6 feet apart.
No.
True.
Everybody wants to stay 6 feet from Henry Higgins.
Is 6 feet really enough?
So good. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Sarah, for putting this together. This was so much fun.
So good to reunite.
Bye.
If anybody's still left, we are looking at future, so keep your eye out for more of these. They're fun and interesting, and we've kind of shown tonight that we can make something like this happen. And I hope our audience, I hope our donors, we're just so appreciative of you, and thank you, and we'll see you virtually, hopefully soon.
You called Algernon.
No,